Now, it was my belief that Alexis Peppers was doing things behind my son's back on behalf of Bobby Joe Champion. And the reason I'm bringing that up now at my favorite post office is because I had to put Alexis's name on my box and tell them to tell people to stop collecting Alexis's mail here because I thought she was, using my P.O. box illegally. And that meant that maybe she could have went on my Facebook page through Bobby Joe Champion, acted like me, and then began to run around town specific to my Women Empowering Women page, where Target might have donated to her to help empower black women, where Bobby Joe Champion, in my mind, working with a few other people, has been stealing my identity. I'm waiting for a PIN number. The United States government told me when I filed my 2018 taxes, 2019, 2021, and 2022 taxes that I needed an identity PIN number. Now, I didn't know if it was because, again, me and Jeanette and the Department of Human Services was in Department of Human Services court where I said Christian Sand gave me guardianship of my grandson. I then solicited Tanya Bransford because I said, again, Tanya, it's a toss-up, about how my daughter died. And then if she had any residuals, any insurance policies that might be due her where Bobby Joe Champion could take over, because at that time the Department of Human Services refused to pay me for daycare. And it was baffling how I'm keeping my grandson. My daughter's saying that I'm keeping him. They're seeing me pick him up. I'm going to public places with him where they could see me and my grandson, yet they refused to pay me for daycare. In fact, I was attacked that day, and they said Shayla was $1 over. And it began to mimic the Africans where, for $1 a day. And I said that's when Ilhan Omar, 2017, 2018, because remind yourself, Dr. Voigt, Strothman, and Sherman, that's the year where I said I was surrounded on the freeway. And then this slamming of the brakes caused me to jolt forward at 30 miles an hour. So I didn't slam into the back of that semi truck where, again, I didn't. But I thought being in that seatbelt, it caused me some trauma. So the first thing I did was go to the Minnesota Department of Transportation and ask them about that freeway. Was it monitored? Because, if you watch the news, you can see where parts of the freeway is monitored. So I didn't know if they had that on recording. Next thing I know, my son was at the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and he had a license to do something. He never got a job there. The license wasn't valid for shit, but he had this license. As I'm questioning the Minnesota Department of Transportation's setup that day as I was on my way over north to vote, which happened to be at the mosque, by the way, on 18th and Lindale. As I was voting at the mosque on 18th and Lindale that year, and then I was done voting, my mother wanted a ride to work. And if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe I took her to vote too. I can't remember. I know I took her to work. I can't remember if I took her to vote or not, but I know that I did vote at the mosque that year. That's where I decided that Keith Ellison, Barack Obama through Ilhan Omar, Abdi Warsame, in my mind, with Keith Ellison being the leader, Bobby being the senator, stealing my identity with Otis Mays, Linda Baker, family, where they could get this imaginary public school where they're in control of my funds. And now people like Alexis may have been collecting welfare out of my money, Social Security out of my money, or she could have been collecting daycare out of money due me that before my son turned 18 should have been paid to me. Now, mind you, I sued Minneapolis District Number 1 when he was in 4th grade, 8th grade. It should have settled when he was in 12th grade. And I said that's when Bobby Joe Champion, Michael Favors, Kim Ellison refused to give up, their high school diplomas so I could prove to housing that they didn't graduate, so I could continue with my housing credit, where the rent that I had in my pocket on 12/27 would have paid the rent, and all I would have owed was court costs. But since I had the rent, they could have waived those court costs, because that would have been the second time that Minneapolis Public Housing Authority under Abdi Warsame had me in court illegally. The first time is when their housing rent collector, Yolanda Rundles, went on the record and said, well, Sharon had the rent yesterday. So the judicial official under that should have really removed any fees, because Sharon had the rent yesterday. She shouldn't have been in court, so they shouldn't have made her pay shit. She damn sure shouldn't have entered into a lifetime agreement to pay off those court costs, which again affected that December, court case where we can't sign another lifetime agreement to pay off court costs that you don't owe. So as I'm at this post office, and I'm looking for a PIN number. Be very clear, Bobby.